Okay, so we're starting now Be'ezras Hashem Hilchot Muktze, and we're using a lot of the material from the Smichas Chaver program, which was founded by Rav Eliada Goldwicht. It's a tremendous program in Hilchos Shabbos that I give in Nishmas Yisrael. Let's start off by looking at the earliest source where Muktze comes from. So we're going to look in our box number 1 on the handout, and we'll see the earliest case where we find Muktze. Gemara in Shabbos Daf Lamed Amud Beis. Kol Yoma de Shabbos Hava Yosef Garas Kol Yoma. That Dovid HaMelech, he knew he would die on Shabbos, so therefore the whole of Shabbos he would be learning Torah. Hahu Yoma, one day the Boile Meinach Nafshe, which was the day that the Malach HaMoves wanted to get him. Kol Malach HaMoves Kamei Velo Yochele. Delo Hava Posak Pumei Megirasa. But the Malach HaMoves needed to get him, but he wouldn't stop learning. And because he wouldn't stop learning, the Malach HaMoves couldn't get him. As we see in the underlined Rashi on the left, Sha'atayra Magina Mimoves, the Torah protects from death. Okay, so the Malach HaMoves had a job to do, and he couldn't do his job. Because Dovid HaMelech kept on learning Torah, so he just wasn't able to kill him. Oma my Avele, so what am I going to do to him? Havele Bustuno Achere Beise. There was a garden behind the house where Dovid HaMelech was. Oso Malach HaMoves Solik Ubochish Beiloinei. The Malach HaMoves came, he climbed and shook some trees. Dovid HaMelech heard this suspicious sound. Nofik Lemechazeh, and he went out to see what's going on. But as he went out, of course, he was still mumbling Torah, murmuring words of Torah. Have a solik badarga, and he went up a ladder, an ifchis darga mitute. He was on this ladder, and one of the rungs came out from underneath his foot. And at that moment, ishtik. At that moment, just because of the surprise, he stopped saying words of Torah. V'noch nafshei, and that was when the great Dovid HaMelech, Dovid Malka Mashiach, that was when he died. So now the next line is underlined. Sholach Shlomo lebei midrasha. Shlomo HaMelech, he sent a shaila to the Beis HaMedrash. Abo meis u'mutal b'chamo. My father, Dovid HaMelech, has died, and he's out there in the sun. And the dogs of my father's household, those dogs are hungry. And there's a fear over here. There's the corpse on the floor. What are you going to do? Ma'asa, what should I do? So they sent back to Shlomo HaMelech. You're allowed to cut up some meat that from an animal that died, give it to the dogs. But here, and your father, Dovid HaMelech, there's a way to move this corpse on Shabbos, which is we're not going to be focusing on that right now, but at a later time. But it says, put a loaf or a baby on him, and then you could pick up the dead body, and then you could move it. Why am I bringing this Gemara over here? Because you see that if somebody asks what's the earliest source of Muktze, we can see that already from the time of Dovid HaMelech and Shlomo HaMelech, for sure, they all knew about Muktze. They didn't say, he said it's clear the father is, he's a corpse, he's dead. Yeah, I know that we're not allowed to move him. Is there any solution how we could actually move him, how we could actually get him out of the way? So you see that they definitely knew about Muktze already then. However, if we look at the next box number 2, we'll see something that seems to contradict this. The next box is Shabbos Daf Kuf Kaf Gimel Amud Beis. Tana Rabbanon B'Rishayna Haya Oimrim Shloisha Kelim Nitzalin B'Shabbos. At the outset, originally, they would say there are only 3 types of tool that you are allowed to move on Shabbos. Yeah? Originally, they would say there are only 3 types of tool you're allowed to move on Shabbos. Let's have a look at Rashi over there in box number 2. Rashi says, in the underlined bit, to be a main Nehemiah ben Chachalia, Babayis Sheni, that in the time of Nehemiah, in the time of the second Beis HaMikdash, Gozral Tiltul Kol HaKelim, they made the decree, you're not allowed to move any kli, you're not allowed to move any vessel, any tool on a Shabbos, Kadei Ligdoyer Geder, in order to enact offense, lahachmir be'esurei Shabbos, to enact a stringency in the laws of Shabbos, because he saw people were lenient in the laws of Shabbos, and that is when they made these strict enactments over here. That Nehemiah said, and this was the time of the second Beis HaMikdash. So again, Dovid and Shlomo were at the beginning of the first Beis HaMikdash. Nehemiah was already at the time of the second Beis HaMikdash, and he saw the Bnei Yisrael were lax with their Shemir Shabbos. So he was the one who made the decree: you're not allowed to move anything except for 3 particular types of tool. And then the Gemara there teaches Hitiru, V'chazru Hitiru, V'chazru V'hitiru, that Nehemiah's laws of Muktze were super machmir, SDRF, super duper real fruma, absolutely very, very machmir. And then Hitiru, V'chazru V'hitiru, V'chazru V'hitiru, that gradually they made the laws of Muktze more lenient until they have the Muktze that we have today. So when was Muktze from? From box number 1, it seems to be that Muktze is from the time of Dovid HaMelech, all the way at the beginning of the first Beis HaMikdash. From box number 2, it seems to imply that Muktze is from the time of Nehemiah, all the way later, much later, at the time of the second Beis HaMikdash. It was Nehemiah who made these laws of Muktze, and in order to strengthen the Bnei Yisrael, who were lax in the laws of Shabbos, and then gradually he made them more lenient to the way they are today. So where is the real source then of Muktze? Dovid HaMelech, who already had it earlier, or Nehemiah? The Aruch HaShulchan explains that actually the Gezerah of Muktze, according to most, it is Midrabanon, but the source of Muktze actually comes all the way from Moshe Rabbeinu, who heard it from HaKadosh Baruch Hu on Har Sinai. Hashem did not give it to him as a mitzvah min HaTorah. He gave it to him as something which has the same status of a Durabonon. Over Yom Hashvi Tishbos, on Shabbos you should rest, and Chazal have the ability to actually determine how that should be. But this was already from the time of Moshe Rabbeinu. So Muktze is a very, very early prohibition. What happened? And that's why Dovid HaMelech and Shlomo HaMelech, they already knew all about Muktze. Now, at the time of Nehemiah, later on, he saw people were lax, and therefore he upgraded it, and he made it more strict than it was beforehand. And he said, you can't move anything. No one's moving any tools, any kalim, any vessels, except for 3, which are discussed over there in the Gemara. And then gradually made them more lenient till the way we have it today. Let's have a look at the Shulchan Aruch Harav in box number 3. Anyone know who the Shulchan Aruch Harav was? Yeah, the Lubavitch. That's right, the first Lubavitch Rebbe, Shneur Zalman of Liadi, and he wrote a Sefer in Halacha, which is a very, very important Sefer in Halacha. And in box number 3, he also gives a similar answer to our question, what is the source of Muktze? And we'll do the underlined bit. Aval davar she'enoi roi b'Shabbos haya asel ataltal afi mei Dovid Shlomo oikadim lechein, something which had no use whatsoever already from the time of Dovid and Shlomo, and in fact even beforehand, that was already prohibited to be moved on Shabbos. So something that had no use on Shabbos, like a corpse, for example, or something that has completely no use on a Shabbos, could be like a rock, has no use on Shabbos. That was the original decree of Muktze. Then the Shulchan Aruch Harav continues in box 3, Masha'en ken kelim, whereas vessels, afilu koisais or ka'orais v'sakin, whether they are cups or bowls or a knife or kietz behen, these sort of things. And then Nehemiah, he made it much more machmir, and he said, you can't even move plates and knives and cups, right? You can't move those things except if you're using it for its actual use. You want to use it now to get a drink? Fine. Then we'll let you use a cup. But otherwise, you're not allowed to move a cup. And then gradually made it more lenient. Like nowadays, we can move any cups that we would like to. So this is what the Shulchan Aruch Harav is telling us originally. there was Muktze, but a very limited type of Muktze. Nehemiah came and upgraded it, and then gradually, as the Bnei Yisrael became more Shomer Shabbos, they became stricter in their Shmira Shabbos. So then he was matir certain things to the way that we have it today. Okay, now we're going to have a look. What are the reasons for Muktze? Why is it that Muktze should be osa? Yeah. By the way, I'll give you a particularly Hasmo mistake that a lot of people make. Yeah, this a lot of people make. If I say, are you allowed to tie a double knot on Shabbos? They'll say it's Muktze. Yeah, they'll say it's Muktze. Now what's the word they should have said? Osa. Osa. Osa means forbidden. Yeah, something which you're not allowed to do on Shabbos is osa. Yeah, Muktze means something that I'm not allowed. We'll see exactly what it means. Certain things that are set aside that I'm not allowed to move on Shabbos. But Muktze is about moving things on Shabbos. That's when we use the word Muktze. Osa means something that is forbidden. Now, why is it that we have these laws of Muktze on Shabbos? By the way, how would Muktze impact on your life on Shabbos? Just give me an example of a way that Muktze impacts in our lives on Shabbos.
You can't take a rock.
Okay, you couldn't pick up a rock and move it. If you wanted to have a goal, yeah. If you wanted to have a goal, or you wanted to make goals or something, yeah. Or you wanted to, for your Nerf guns, have some target practice, not the electric Nerf guns, obviously. And you want to have a target practice. You will not be allowed to pick up a rock to do that. Give me another example of how Muktze impacts you on Shabbos.
Writing.
Oh, is writing Muktze or osa? It's osa.
The pen.
So you can't move a pen. If you'd have a pen, you wouldn't be allowed. We'll see how you can, because in Muktze there are various different solutions that we have, and certain times you can, certain times you can't. But in generally speaking, if you have something which is Muktze, let's say you have a pen around, you wouldn't be allowed to move it. Any other way that Muktze impacts your Shabbos? Huh?
Writing is not really pen.
Yes, that's true, but that is already forbidden min ha-Torah. It would be one of the 39 malachas. Yeah. Okay, that's a very good question. We'll be coming up later on whether you can move tefillin. Yeah, okay. So these are all just interesting cases, and there are loads of really, really interesting cases, but as Hashem, that we will get to. Now let's see why, what's so bad about moving a rock? Why is it that you're not allowed to move a rock? Why is it that you're not allowed to move something, let's say a pen, let's say you've got some photocopy paper, totally blank paper, yeah, we'll see it. That according to most, this would also be Muktze, because the only thing you can do with it is actually write on it. Certain things, but why is it that these things are forbidden? So let's have a look at box number 4, and we're learning now from the Rambam and Hilchot Shabbos. So far, interesting? Yeah, interesting? Okay. Okay, so box number 4. Chazal, so he says, the Rambam is saying that even though many say the source, like the Aruch HaShulchan says, is from Moshe Rabbeinu already, but it has a status of a din d'Rabbanan, something which is forbidden by Chazal. The Chachamim forbade to move miktzas devarim b'Shabbos, a certain number, a small amount of things on Shabbos, that you're not allowed to do it the same way that you did during the weekday. So why on earth did they come on to did they touch this and come into contact with this? Why did they forbid this? They said, you're not supposed to, your movement on Shabbos, the way you walk, you're allowed to run if you're having fun in the game, you're allowed to run. And you're allowed to run if you're going for a Dvar Mitzvah. Right? But just stam to run on Shabbos, your movement on Shabbos, again, if it's for a game, you're allowed to. But really, your movement on Shabbos should be different than the way that it is during the weekday. On Shabbos, we speak a bit different than we do in the weekday, because we're not supposed to speak about Malacha. So I can't say, I'm going to be driving to Manchester. You shouldn't say that on Shabbos, because you shouldn't be speaking about something that you're not allowed to do. So if they said that my whole activities on Shabbos are supposed to be different than the weekday. So too on Shabbos, just like we're supposed to speak in a slightly different way. Don't mention malacha. We're supposed to walk in a slightly different way. Walk a bit more relaxed. No running unless it's for fun or for the bar mitzvah. Yeah, and so too. So the way that we actually move things around on Shabbos, Chazal said we should move things around differently in order that it shouldn't be like a weekday in our eyes. That's what they said. So they said on Shabbos you just have to be a bit more aware. There's this like a holy day. So don't just do things the same as in the weekday. Then skip a few lines to the next underlined bit. V'oid kisheyevaker v'yetaltal kelim shemalachton le'esa. A second reason why you're not allowed to move certain things on Shabbos, if you're going to move certain things which are normally used for something which is ochsa, for something which is forbidden to do on Shabbos, for example a pencil, if you are allowed on Shabbos, you can move your pencil, you just can't write with it. What are you going to do? You'll move it over here, you'll move it over there, and you'll have a little scribble in the middle. And therefore they said anything which is something which is normally used for something which is osa on Shabbos, which is forbidden, you shouldn't even move it on Shabbos in case you come to use it. So if you've got a lovely camera, so you will not be allowed to use this camera on Shabbos. So since you can't use it on Shabbos because it's osa, they said don't even move it on Shabbos in case you come to pick it up and snap a few pictures. V'oid, and now a third reason, mipnei shemitzas ha'om einam ba'alei umniyos. There are a certain number of people in the community that don't work. They don't have a profession, they don't work, and they're just around. Next underlined bit, and if for them, they're not working anyway. So if they're not going out to work, they're not doing any malacha anyway, they're sitting, they're schmoozing, then Shabbos will just be like any other day. Then Shabbos wasn't even recognizable for them because they would just be chilling the same way as they do during the week. So therefore Chazal said, at least the things that you move, don't move them in the same way. Let's have some extra limitations, even if you're not doing any malacha. So there should be a shvis and a keres. It should be recognizable that Shabbos is different. Okay? So what was reason number one? Things should be different on Shabbos for us. Yeah? If our speech and our walking is different, so too our moving things should be different. Reason number two, if you move it, you might use it. And reason number three, for the people who are chilling anyway, and they're not really doing much malacha on Shabbos, it should be shvis and nekeres. It should be recognizable that Shabbos is different. 1 and 3 sound quite similar, don't they? Yeah, slight difference between them. Won't go into it now, but those are the 3 reasons. Now that's what the Rambam says. Now, if you look at a Rambam, you'll often have the Raavad arguing with the Rambam. Let's have a look at what the Raavad says over here, still in box number 4, in the small print. They say you should always read the small print, right? So let's have a look. In the underlined bit in the Raavad in box number 4, the reason that they said you're not allowed to carry on Shabbos, the reason they said you're not allowed to move Muktze on Shabbos is in case you come to Haitzah, carry it. Right? That it is to stop you from coming to carry something. If you're in your house and you'd be allowed to move your different things, your different Muktze stuff, you might come to happily go outside of your house and you might come to carry. So it seems like the Raavad has a 4th reason over here. And this is interesting that that he mentions this 4th reason. Yes?
Surely based on this reason, it should also be a police.
Right. So there'll be a question on the Raavad exactly why these things. Very good point. Okay. So the Gemara in Shabbos, this Raavad is actually from the Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Kaf Dalet. That says that they said that Muktze is os in case you come to carry it. So the Maggid Mishnah asks, why did the Rambam ignore this reason that's mentioned in the Gemara, lest you come to carry it? And the Maggid Mishnah explains that in the time of Nehemiah, which was later on, you know what he saw people were doing? You know, we said at the time of Nehemiah, people were like, we're not keeping Shabbos so well. You know what he saw they were doing? They were carrying. So this Gemara that the Dovid speaks about is why they upgraded the laws of Muktze. The reason that Nehemiah upgraded them is because he saw that people were carrying them, and this is the one that the Dovid is mentioning. But then, as we saw, Nehemiah enacted that, but then he loosened that, and that's where we get these other original three reasons, which are the ones that the Rambam is focusing on over here. Okay, so far so good? Yeah? So we've seen so far what have we seen? Let's just recap. So far we've seen what is the source, where the laws of Muktze from? So if someone would ask you, where were the laws of Muktze from? How would you explain the two stages to them?
One's Dovid, one's from Nehemiah.
That's right, one at least that they knew about at the time of Dovid, maybe earlier, yeah? And then the second one is from the time of Nehemiah. He made it stricter, and then he made it a little bit more lenient the way we have it today. And if somebody would ask you, give me a couple of reasons for Muktze, what would you say? A couple of reasons for Muktze? Yes.
If you pick it up, you might come to use it.
Right. If you move it, you might come to use it. Another reason.
You to do a tar with it.
Right. You might come to carry. Yeah. Another reason.
Differentiate between things.
Excellent. Right. To differentiate between Shabbos and the weekday. Yes. Yeah. Right. Okay. So now that we've seen, yeah.
In Dovid's time, what was his level of Muktze belonging to?
So far, what we do know, the way the Shulchan Aruch Harav explains it, in box number 3, is at the time of Dovid HaMelech, anything that had absolutely no use on Shabbos, that was what was Muktze. Only the things that had absolutely no use at all. Okay, next. Now we've seen the source of Muktze, and we've seen the reasons for Muktze. Now let's have a look at the different types of Muktze. And to have a look at that, what we're going to do is the accompanying sheet that you have, which is from the introduction to the Mishnah Berurah on Siman Shin Ches. Okay, so go to. We've just spoken through a lot of what he says in the early part of the introduction, but let's go about 2/3 of the way through the introduction. Can you see where it says Vada the Mikanat Seif Siman Shin Yud Beis? Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where do you have that? It's in a separate sheet. Do you have a separate sheet?
Yeah.
Are there spare separate sheets around? Yeah. Spare separate sheets over here on top of the stender.
No, just one.
Or just one, and then more separate sheets at the back. Very good. The more separate sheets at the back, and so.
Who needs?
So, can you tell me where it is? Where in the sheet does it say Vada the Mikanat Seif? Huh? The line that ends with Samach Samach. Yeah, Vada. And you should know. And here we have the introduction of the Holy Chofetz Chaim to the laws of Muktze. Vada, you should know. The Mikanat Seif Siman Shin Yud Beis, that from here until the end of Siman Shin Yud Beis, so that's Shin Ches, Shin Tes, Shin Yud, Yud Aleph and Yud Beis, right? 5 chapters in the Shulchan Aruch. Nispar Arba'a Chalokim Shal Muktze. There will be explained 4 different categories of Muktze. So now, Rabbi say, we're going to become connoisseurs. We're going to become people who have some expertise over here and know what the different, all the jargon, right? All of the technical language for this. There are 4 categories of Muktze. Chele Echad, number 1, Muktze Machmas Chisoron Kis. Muktze Machmas because of Chisoron Kis, a lack of money. What does that mean? That's like certain expensive things that you wouldn't, that are set aside because of their value. Dainu kli shor makpid olov shlo yifgaim v'lo yiskalkel. A person is very particular about that. You don't want to get it ruined. You don't want to get it damaged. So one classic example for this would be if you or your father or your mother is a surgeon. Yeah, and you've got your scalpels, and you've got these really, really sharp tools. Any of you have parents who are surgeons, or you've done a little bit of surgery yourself on anybody? No? Okay, so if you have this scalpel and it's like really, really good, you wouldn't use it to cut an apple. right? Or to cut your chicken, even if it was tovelt. You wouldn't use it to do that. Why not? Because it's like a really expensive quality tool, let's say, if you've got, yeah? Huh?
Not because it's been cutting humans.
Right, apart from that, let's say you got a new one. Because it's a really, you're really particular about it. There's this word in Hebrew, you're makpid. You're makpid about it. You're very, very particular about it. And you don't want it to be, some say, and we'll get to it, it might be that your passport is actually Muktze machmas chesaron kis. Chesaron kis means a loss of money, but we've defined it as something like you're really particular about. Like, do you know where your passport is right now?
Yeah.
Yeah? Your passport, and anyone who says no, your parents will know where it is. Yeah? Because you want to know where your passport is. You don't just like, you're not hefka with it. Okay, so the first part is something a person is makpid, you're really particular with it, that it shouldn't break. Chelek sheni, the second part, davar she'enei kli v'lo machal otom v'lo machal behema. It is something which, it is not an actual vessel, it's not a tool, it's not food, machal otom, it's not animal food. Kugein avonim v'konim u'mois. For example, like stones, and reeds, like pieces of grass, and it says umois and money. We'll explain why money is included in this list. Be'ez Hashem. Ve'eitzim, bits of wood, kairos, beams, ve'ofar v'chayil, sand and soil, umeis, a dead body, ubale chaim and animals, grey grace v'tzimukim, shemunochim bakim shemisyabshim, and if you have different dried figs and raisins that you leave in the sun for a long time so they should dry out. It has no use right now. These things have no use. And that's called muktze because of itself. So it has no use right now. So as a simple case of that, he's given us a whole list. It's easy to remember, if you just think a rock. A rock, it doesn't actually have a designated pre-existing use. You're right, you could use it right now as an improvised weapon, but it doesn't have an already predetermined designated use. So a rock, it's muktze machmas gufa. It doesn't do anything. It's not a tool. It's not food.
Then these rocks will chalk.
So it's one that wasn't, that would be actually a different category which we'll come to soon. That would be more like a pen. But it has no inherent function. Number 3, chelek shlishi, klisha malachtoi le'issa, something which is used for a forbidden thing, besif gimel, that we'll see later. That would be like the pen or the pencil. It's used for something which is forbidden. And that's called a klisha malachtoi le'issa, something which is used for something prohibited. Chelek revi, klisha malachtoi leheta, umunach olov devar muktze, something which is a normal permitted thing, but there's something which is muktze on top of it. So let's say the classic example is the tray, your computer table. Let's say a computer table. It could be the tray where your candles, Shabbos candles on. Your computer table. Umunach olov devar muktze, that muktze was on it when Shabbos came in. Even if that thing was taken off on Shabbos, let's say the cleaner came, or a baby came, a child came, and they moved it, and now it doesn't have anything on it. Since there was something forbidden that was on it when Shabbos came in, since it was muktze when Shabbos came in, for the twilight zone, it's muktze for the whole day. So he's told us so far there's something called muktze machmas chesaron kis, loss of money. You're super makpid about it. What was the example we gave?
Passport.
Potentially passport or surgeon's knife, Then we said it is muktze machmas gufay. It's muktze because of itself. It has no inherent use. What was the example? The stone has no predetermined designated use. The third one, klisha malachtoi le'issa, something which is normally used for something for forbidden activity. That's a pen. And the fourth one, klisha malachtoi leheta umunach olov davar muktze, something. Let's say the computer table, which is, we call it a bossis. Do you know what bossis means?
base.
A base, that's right. Okay. Then he says in brackets, there are two other different categories of Muktze. Something which when Shabbos came in, it was actually still attached to the ground or had not yet been trapped. So for example, if you have an apple that was attached to the ground when Shabbos came in, even if it would fall off the tree, still you wouldn't be allowed to have that on a Shabbos. And that is one type. And then another one, shenis Muktze machmas mitzvah, something which is Muktze because it's been set aside for a mitzvah use. Kugein adse sukkah v'noya, which is very nice as we're about to celebrate Sukkot Be'ez Hashem, like the beams of the sukkah and the noi sukkah, the decorations. Since those things have been set aside, to be used for a mitzvah, even if they fall off, they still actually have some degree of kedusha, and we'll see exactly to what extent that is correct. One final point that we'll do today: possible ways to move Muktze. There are some ways that you can move Muktze. You are allowed to touch Muktze on Shabbos. You're only not allowed to move it, but you are allowed to touch Muktze on Shabbos. Number one. Number two, you're allowed to move it in an unusual way, and that is called tiltul kala'achar yad or tiltul begufa. You're moving it in the back of your hand or with your body. So therefore, if you're moving something with your feet, or if you're moving Muktze with your elbow, right? You can't turn a light on with your elbow because turning a light is osa. But when it comes to, because that's forbidden to do on Shabbos. Muktze, which is just the moving something which is Muktze, the Rosh says that you can move it with your elbow, with your shoulder, with your toes, with your nose, however you can do that in an unusual way. The Rashba argues, Mishnah Berurah goes like the Rosh, Chaznish goes like the Rashba. We'll get to that Be'ez Hashem, but moving it in an unusual way is generally acceptable. Certainly according to Mishnah Berurah. And finally, the other way that you're allowed to move Muktze is tiltul min hatzad l'tzorech davar hamutar, which basically means if you're going to move something in the freezer, which is permitted, you want to get the ice pop. But through getting the ice pop, you're going to move something Muktze, which is, let's say, some raw meat that you got in the freezer. You're moving a permitted item. You're moving it because you want the permitted item, but it's automatically also going to move a forbidden item. That is also tiltul min hatzad l'tzorech davar hamutar. That is going to be one of the ways to move Muktze. So just to summarize, we saw what's the source of the prohibition of Muktze. Dovid HaMelech, Nehemiah. We also saw four reasons why there are the laws of Muktze, 3 in the Rambam, 1 in the Raavad. We also saw the different types of Muktze. We saw there were 6 types of Muktze. Give me an example of Muktze machmas chisor and kiss, something, the shechita knife, the surgeon's knife, you're particular about, something which is Muktze machmas gufoy, inherently has no use, a rock. Give me an example of a klisha malachto le'is, something normally used for a forbidden purpose, a pen, very good. Number 4, a bossis l'davar osa, the base, the computer table, very, very good. And then we said also something which was you couldn't access before Shabbos came in, let's say it was attached to the ground, or a mitzvah item. And then we said, what are the 3 ways that you can move Muktze on Shabbos? Number 1, or just by touching it, not moving it. Number 2, unusual way. And number 3, to move a permitted thing that ends up moving something which is Muktze. Did anybody learn anything today?
Yes.
I'm so happy. It's such a pleasure and honor to learn and stay with you. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Hatzalach and Tzad Ishmaya Gamar Chasim Otayva.
Second last one. It's covered.